Hi, everybody. Hello. This is Annalisa Durr with Journey to the Goddess TV. Dr. Annalisa, I always forget that part, but it's very important. And today I'm joined with my, I would like to call you recurrent guest, Vena Ramphal, also a doctor. Um, so let me give you a little introduction. Vena's been on multiple times, so some of you have probably seen us together before. But for those of you who are new to her and her work, I'll give you a brief intro. Vena is a movement artist and stage presence consultant. Her motto is change your posture and change your life. Trained in classical Indian dance and has graced stages internationally. She has a PhD in philosophy and dance from SOAS London University. Okay, welcome officially.
Thank you very much. So glad to be here with you again.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Um, so I was having a little bit of YouTube technical challenges, so I'm hoping that this goes smoothly. Um, so let's just get into it. Vena and I invited Vena back onto the show to talk about a subject of her choice. Beauty as a way to uplift consciousness or to raise consciousness as a radical way to raise consciousness. So, Vena, I'm just going to invite you to jump right in and tell us what this is all about.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here again. As I said, when you reached out to me, I've been thinking a lot recently about the state of human consciousness.
Yeah,
Haven't we all?
no kidding.
And where we are. And I feel like we have been on that cliff edge for a while. A lot of us know we're on a cliff edge where we could just fall off. I sometimes worry that that is the way that a lot of people will go, because I think many are not aware of what's. And I then think about beauty, because when I'm thinking about how can we address the current crisis that we're in, in a world that is very, very angry and overwhelmed, I feel that the emitting of beauty is a truly radical way of uplifting human consciousness. So I'm going to give two definitions of beauty.
Okay.
And I will say that my whole perception of the world and my understanding of beauty comes out of the classical Indic knowledge systems. So classical Indian dance, Ayurveda, yoga, tantra, all of these bodies of practice. So when I say beauty, I mean that beauty as a result of health. Beauty is a natural consequence of health. Okay, that is my interpretation and understanding of what Ayurveda or the health practice is actually all about.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, beauty is the consequence or the cultivation of coherence in the body based on the natural symmetry of the body.
Oh,
Yes. So this is
yeah.
where the dance practice comes in. This comes out of my dance practice. So the key word, which is samam. Samam means balance, equanimity,
Okay.
right? So when we're talking about health and when we're talking about balance, a human mechanism. So the physical, or what you and I would call the body, also the mind and the emotions and the energy. So we're cultivating coherence in the entire system. So
Yeah.
when we do that, beauty is the natural result of that.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So can you give some concrete, like just can you give a concrete example of how you would work with somebody on that?
Absolutely. So let's think about the hips, because the
Yes.
hips, move when we walk, when we sit. So if we think about symmetry and how do we find symmetry? So if I'm inviting someone to find their balance and their symmetry, because that symmetry is actually based on a sense of balance. If you
Yeah.
sense into your hips right now
Mm-hmm.
and gently rock backwards and forwards a few times, keeping your attention in your hips. And
Mm-hmm.
now just make little circles So allow the spine to sort of rotate, keeping your attention in your hips, just to become aware of the movement and the feeling. And so this is one of the things about bringing that symmetry, is that you always work both ways.
Yes. Okay.
Can you feel
Sorry.
it? What are you feeling? So tell me what's happening for you.
Yeah, so I'm feeling well, my body's like, yes, I'm awake. So I'm feeling like different parts of my body um um that maybe haven't felt a lot of attention or movement. That's one of the things I'm feeling. Um there's also there's a sense of aliveness.
Mm-hmm.
I always have a feeling of a kind of an erotic kick when I move my pelvis or my, around my hips
Yeah.
here, especially
Mm-hmm.
when sitting. Um, it's also, I can feel like this activation of energy up my spine happening
Mm-hmm.
too.
Brilliant. Okay, so spine. So this is very important. So if you now let yourself sense into where your hips and where your spine wants to come to rest.
Okay.
Right?
Um,
Okay, so
yeah.
yeah. So that posture, it's likely that you settled into a natural kind of balance.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's an easy, when the spine is upright but is held in a space of ease. So it's not rigid, it's held in a space of ease,
Yeah.
sitting on top of the hips, and the neck is going to be upright but at ease. That's the fundamental posture through which we cultivate this inner coherence.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so
Yes.
in terms of the brain, the right and the left are linked in. The right and left parts of the body and the central nervous system are all communicating beautifully with each other. So that's why it comes from the inside out. It's actually like a neurological and skeletal. Every part, every sort of system of the body is involved.
Right. And I can imagine that through that kind of somatic coherence, at that level, it's actually going to activate the brain in different ways. You'll probably be more awake, more alert, less brain fog, maybe probably even less tendencies to like the ADHD or like the, addiction to the things in front of you. Like you can probably focus longer. I'm sure there's
For
many other
sure.
benefits, but those are the things coming to my mind.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. You put it beautifully. And the result of that is that we're more centered in self. We're less likely to be distracted, and therefore we're less likely to be programmed. We're less likely to be controlled. We're less likely to be emotionally reactive. So, as I said, in a world that seems angry and overwhelmed and filled with grief, how do you hold your own boundary? Because
Right,
if we're going to give beauty to others, so now we're uplifting not only our own, we have to hold our own boundary.
right. Vena, I'm just going to cut in really quickly and say, let you know that every once in a while it's cutting out. So I may ask you to repeat something just in
Okay.
case. I want
Okay.
everyone to hear your words. So the last thing you said is, can you repeat that last sentence or two you said? Something about the inner.
Um, right. Yes. So it's about boundaries. It's about, if we're going to uplift our own consciousness and the
Right,
consciousness of others, we need to hold our own boundaries and keep our center really strong, so that we're not constantly pulled into being reactive by everything that's coming at us.
right, exactly. So I'm having these visions right now, cultivating this inner beauty, like you're cultivating an inner garden, right?
Yes.
Planting, nourishing, watering thing, loving little things to the different facets of your body. Um, and also what's coming to mind is this, so many people are living outside of themselves, which I
Yeah.
think is what you're getting at, and like projecting all of that the unawareness of the inner self is being projected onto everything outside of themselves, outside of oneself, because people aren't taking the time to cultivate that inner beauty as you're talking about. So it makes sense to me that like someone
Yeah.
would be so reactive and angry and stuff on the outside because they're not nurturing themselves within. They're not starting with themselves. Would you s-
Precisely.
okay.
Exactly. Exactly. And the other thing I think that's coming to mind to say about beauty is that beauty is auspicious. So
Mm,
again, remember that my whole perspective is coming from the Indic knowledge system. So when we speak about beauty, and I'm saying this because sometimes the reaction I get when I talk about beauty is that people can feel almost a little bit offended because they think, well, it sounds really superficial. But I think that speaks to the way in which our current thinking, especially in the parts of the world that we live in, we're very bombarded with, I think, artificial or contrived ideas of what beauty is about. So yes, I am speaking about physical beauty. It is about the body. There's that. I'm not, that we're not bypassing anything here. But the point is that when we cultivate that beauty from our entire self, from that includes every aspect of ourselves, what that means is that you naturally emit an energy field of harmony around you. Now you're uplifting consciousness.
Yeah, okay. So okay. So it's even more, there's that subtle level that you're talking about as well. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
as a result
Yeah.
of that inner cultivation. That's fascinating. Can you also share with us what you mean when you say Indic traditions for people that might not know what that means?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm speaking specifically about the classical systems of dance, music, art, all of the artistic practices, martial arts, meditation, yoga, all of the different aspects of yoga, all the schools of philosophy, astrology. So there are many, many, many different knowledge systems that sometimes we call them wisdom traditions as well. But I'm very deliberately in recent years calling them knowledge systems because I think that, I mean, you'll know this from it, particularly in the academic world, but also I think in the public awareness, there's this kind of uh, it's not meant to be dismissive, but when we use the term wisdom tradition, it sounds airy fairy, and it's
Mm,
often contrasted to, so you have the sort of mysticism of the East and the
mm,
scientific brain of the West, and
right, where yeah, one is verifiable and
getting rid of that false.
yeah,
Exactly. So let's remove that false idea and
right.
acknowledge that, because in these systems we did not make this division between science over here and art over here. Knowledge
Right.
is knowledge.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. I think a lot of these ideas are that yeah, that idea would be very radical in and of itself from someone growing up in the Western tradition and having not encountered anything from, Indian culture or philosophy, because it's a totally different way of interacting with and understanding the world.
And also, I would add there that I also now think of it actually as Asian knowledge systems, because the more I look at the Chinese systems, the Japanese, the Korean, and all of that, it's very much the same approach. It's this whole person, whole being approach.
Right. It shouldn't be radical, but I think it is, you know. Um, so okay, so we're at the base level of understanding what you mean by talking about beauty as both the inner and the outer, but really cultivating the inner to illuminate the outer and then to have a positive effect on everything else and everyone else around you. So I guess there's multiple questions. It's like, is it as simple as, even just one person starting to cultivate this in their everyday life when and where they can, as as a method to not only help themselves, but help uplift humanity. And then maybe you see it as a chain reaction.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think that where we are in our reality now as a species, I actually think that is the best thing that we can do instead of trying to think in terms of big change, because that will just feel overwhelming and
Yeah.
frankly often feels impossible. But the way I think we can achieve it is precisely to work with ourselves and our micro world. If you
Yes.
focus on your micro world, the people who you are in touch with every day, every week, every month, and hold your boundary. Because I really do think that this is not the time to go reaching into the massive collective, because the collective consciousness right now is in such flux, right?
Hmm.
It's like
Yeah.
reaching into an erupting volcano. That's risky and it's hard work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So instead, cultivate and let that be enough. And because if each of us does that, that energy, we are automatically building a very, very strong energy field between us. So we actually build that collective energy field.
Yes.
We can only do that by focusing on ourselves. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I have this story that keeps popping into my mind that I want to share that I think exemplifies exactly what you're saying. So years ago, when I was living in New York City, I was interested in this theater group called the Living Theater, which originated in the 60s as kind of a radical kind of hippie, no war movement, a no war theater style movement. Like they were all about like social justice kind of, but in a very, I think originally a kind of a, how do you want to say this? Like it wasn't meant to be like on the front lines, like protesting. But like, anyway, the point that I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but the point is they're still around. And 40 years later, and I went to see a performance there of one of their original um, performances about, it was about Wall Street and money and greed, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, the current like managing director, current at that time, came out and spoke, and he was young, probably in his, mid to late 20s. And he was like seething with anger, and he was he was so angry, and he's like, "We need peace, we need peace," blah blah. And I was like, "Wait a second, there's a disconnect. I think you have to cultivate inner peace before you can, ask other people to be peaceful, or organizations or the governments, whatever. It all starts within yourself."
Absolutely. And I think, it's the only way actually. And and I know that both you and I agree on this. Anger is important in that it gives us that impetus to create the change, but we cannot create the change from being in that angry state. It just doesn't work. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Right. Absolutely. Because people won't listen to you, or you'll push people away, or you won't be creating the kind of change that you want to change. You probably won't be open to all the other kind of possible ways of evolving the issue at hand.
Right. And also just on a kind of practical level, if your neurology is all over the place, you cannot be coherent. And that uplifting of consciousness and creating genuine only come from a place of coherence.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. God, it's so easy to live out of balance. It's so easy to, I mean, like, it's funny because I like, I'm so aware of the need to, do stretches in the morning, eat foods and eat a variety of foods and drink water and do breathing and meditation. But like it's so backwards. It's like the management of like incorporating all of that into my day feels so difficult compared to everything that I have to get done. A product of, I think, modern world. And so all of that stuff feels like a luxury rather than like a necessary foundation. And so how do you think that people can start to integrate the cultivation of that inner beauty on a daily basis?
Well, great. So let's actually start with a couple of things you said, like
Yeah.
drinking more insufficient water. So the approach that I take when I'm advising people on how to create change now is to do it, kind of drip feed it in. Do it every time you remember, just do it. With stretching, you put the kettle on, just do some stretches then. Do you know what I mean? You're kind of walking from one room to another. You get up to go to the kitchen after you've been in front of the screen. Do a couple of extra stretches then. It takes 10 minutes, or rather, the point is it takes 10 seconds, not 10 minutes.
Mhm.
Because if we start to tell ourselves, okay, I'm going to give myself 10 minutes in the morning to do this, and then in the middle of the day, another half an hour to do that, it will not happen.
Right.
In those kind of in between moments, we all know by now what we need to do. We know what the basics are. So just find a way of getting them in without overthinking it.
Right. I
Mm-hmm.
wonder too, like sometimes I'll think of those things as like a chore. Like sometimes I think of stretching in the morning like a chore, even though I know I feel so much better throughout the day if I do it.
Yes.
So I'm wondering like what do you do with yourself if that's the mental state that you're coming from when you're trying to integrate some of these
Yes.
basics?
Yes. What I do, and this is where the beauty comes in, you need to create this kind of, it's almost like creating an advert for yourself in your head, right? where that becomes this sort of really like dynamic, luxurious, exquisite thing. It's sort of the highlight. And if you make it into that, make that mental movie for yourself, then put yourself into that state. Now you're reaching for that, you're reaching for this exquisite, aspirational, beautiful thing. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. I just had this image. I was like, oh yeah, light the candle, like so,
Yes.
put on some incense. Okay, now it feels like a ritual rather than something I have to do. I'm
Yeah.
like, and then I start planning about wow, aging really is difficult, and it's like I don't want to actually go there in my head.
No.
I want to enjoy every day and I want to enjoy where I've come from and where I'm going and where I am right now in the present moment. It's fascinating.
Right. Right.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so just kind of in because we're kind of getting to that end time. Is there anything else that you want to share that maybe we haven't touched on in this conversation?
Yes. Yes. Just something really specific. So if we think about the hands, because when obviously with classical Indian dance we use the hands a lot. Um, I thought it would be nice to give everybody a very visceral experience of
Yes.
using
Okay.
the hands. So we experience the body and the mind. So the lotus, as you all know, the lotus, or this notion of opening and closing flowers, is very potent. So let's just practice this. Bring your hands together into a bud shape, and you're going to open and close, and just let your attention be in the movement itself. You can close your eyes if you wish to. And then let your attention be in the space inside your hands as your fingers open and close. And now let your attention run and through the arms up into the elbows and then up further into your shoulders. So you're feeling that connection between fingers. And then let your attention extend further from the shoulders through into the center of your throat and then down into the center of your chest. So you've got a flow of connection between your hands and into the center of the chest, the space of the heart. And be with that experience.
Mm.
Allow your mind and your breathing to softly come into alignment with that movement. Beautiful. And you can bring that to.
Mm.
And actually, now just place your palms, one on the chest and one on your belly. And just feel that energy locking into your body. Lovely.
Mm. Thank you, Vena. What a great way to start the day.
Mm.
Oh, wonderful. Well, let's give everybody an opportunity to figure out how they can work with you. Would you like to do that?
Absolutely. So actually, I have something really, really beautiful coming up. It's registration is open for my course called The Goddess in Your Body.
Mm.
And it's a 3-month ceremonial to bring out that and activate that spiritual energy in the body, to reinvent yourself from the inside out and bring in those next level opportunities that you know are waiting for you.
Beautiful.
So registration is open now. We start at the beginning of February.
Okay.
And it's a brilliant way to start the year. This is really for you if you're going to take next year and make it into a beautiful year.
Okay, say that one more time because you cut out. This is for taking the beauty.
Yes, taking next year, approaching it consciously, and making it into an exquisite, beautiful year of power.
I love that. God, what like the timing couldn't be better for that, since it seems like the outside world is becoming more and more chaotic and unpredictable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it would be amazing to cultivate daily practices of inner balance and inner harmony.
Mm.
So thank you. So what I'll do is I'm going to provide those links to your socials and also to that course, yeah,
Yes.
in the YouTube text box and all the places. It'll be available everywhere where this video is seen. And so thank you so much, Vena. It's always a pleasure to have you. And yeah, thank you everybody at home for watching. Please share, please like this video, please leave a comment. And yeah, just come back for more and more videos. And I learned, I like the what I learned from Vena is well, I learn from you every time you come on this show and every time we have a conversation. But I think the depth of knowledge and wisdom and creativity that she embodies and conveys is just invaluable. So I really, really, really encourage everybody to work with Vena.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for those kind words. And I love our ongoing conversation. I feel like it's a thread of conversation that we just keep spinning, and it's beautiful. Thank you.